Hello there, and welcome to the Marketing 101 podcast for small business owners. I'm your host, Philippa Channer. I'm a content marketing strategist here in Montgomery County, Maryland, and I'm thrilled about helping small business owners really get a better grip on their marketing, especially their content strategies, and really understanding the type of content they should be developing, where they should put it, how often, all that good stuff. And for the month of February, I have been speaking on just content repurposing, how to maximize the content you've already made, already invested in. Or if you're going to invest in a big piece of content, how can you make the most out of the time, the money, the effort that you're putting into this content and really maximize and spread it and get the most out of your time? So I've really enjoyed this conversation. We've talked about a bunch of things, but I've realized you may not want to hear me talk all the time. So I have a guest today, and I have Sarah Noel Block here. So Sarah, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in marketing and what brings you here today.
I am Sarah, and I'm the founder of Tiny Marketing. I started marketing 15 years ago. My first job out of school was in marketing. I've always loved it. But I've also been a writer my whole life. I've always loved words. So it was natural for me to move into content marketing. I think it's really important to focus on organic marketing so you own your home and you're not renting it. And SEO, content marketing, it builds trust with your audience and it lasts. It gives you leads for years to come. So that's what I've been focusing on. And you can find me over on my podcast, The Tiny Marketing Show, or all social media channels with Sarah Noel Block. It's my website too. And I'm
Awesome.
excited to talk about repurposing. I'm super passionate about this.
Yes, awesome. When I came across your name and I saw that you have shared about this topic before, I was like, okay, this is perfect because this is a new conversation for me. And I felt like I probably do not know all there is to know. So it's good to have some additional viewpoints and point of views on just content repurposing and probably, again, maximizing our content and effort. So some of the things that I've talked about so far in this series, has to deal with, the beginnings, how to establish whether or not you're ready and able to repurpose content. So one of the first things was understanding your audience. So have you played with, understanding who your client's audience is before repurposing content, or do you feel like that may not be any relevant to the process?
Well, I think it's incredibly relevant to the process of creating that core content that you would be repurposing.
Yeah.
You need to have that foundation in place and understand what they care about, what they are Googling, what questions they have, what their pain points are, and what they really want the end result to be.
Yeah.
What would success look like to them? You need to know all of that before you start creating content in the first place.
That is very true. And one of the things I was considering too is in knowing your audience is, oftentimes we as marketers we suggest to clients, pick one platform and really focus on it. Don't try to be on all the social media platforms. It's too exhausting. And when they do that, of course, if they're really dedicated to one platform, they may be losing out on audiences on other platforms. So maybe content repurposing is an opportunity to connect with audiences that's not on their primary platform. And knowing how those audiences use those platforms may be helpful when you're getting ready to post them there.
Yeah, I think that you have to think of it in terms of content repurposing is basically distribution. You need to create net new content from that core piece of content. A lot of the companies I'm working with, they have one person marketing departments or no marketing department at all.
Yeah.
And you don't have a huge bandwidth to be creating all the time. And you really don't have to. You can take that core piece of content that you've created. Let's say it's an interview with an influencer, and you can turn
Yes.
it into a ton of net new content. Social media platforms love zero click content. So The difference is you're creating something new from something that's already been created. You're not recycling it and just posting the same thing everywhere. So, it does take a little bit of effort to be on those other platforms, but it does go far. I
Yeah.
would say if you're going with that be big on one platform thing,
Yep.
then, once you've established yourself there, you can recycle your content on those other platforms, and then once you've established yourself on that your core platform, then move on to another one and create that zero click content that's channel specific. But that's what has the biggest impact is channel specific content.
Yes. So tell me, and tell me and others listening, what do you mean by zero click content? Because I hear that meaning I have content that nobody's clicking on. Is that what it
No,
is?
that's not what I mean.
Yep.
So, zero click content is native first content. It's content that's not meant to take people away from that platform. So,
Uh,
let's think about LinkedIn, for example. They don't want people leaving LinkedIn, they don't want people leaving that platform. So, what you would do is let's go back to that influencer interview example. Let's say you interviewed an influencer. Instead of linking to that interview on LinkedIn, what you do is you create a post having some like something that you learned from that conversation, tag that influencer in the post and have it live natively on there. Don't try and drive people away from LinkedIn. Instead, just create your brand right there.
got it. And I think a lot of like you're saying, platforms want that. They don't want people leaving. And so if
No.
you have the ability and the resources to repurpose your content for each platform rather than linking, like you're saying, on all, like, for instance, if I do a blog post and I share that blog post on each platform, if I share a link to the blog post, it's not as effective as if I actually shared the content there and they could experience there.
Right, exactly. So let's take that blog post example and roll with it. All right, you created a blog post, and let's say your core channel is LinkedIn. What I would do with that is take that blog post and post it as a newsletter. So it shoots out to all of your subscribers on LinkedIn. LinkedIn newsletters, huge.
Yes.
And then what I would do is I would create new content, a standalone social media post from different sections of that blog post. And I do that while I'm writing the content right underneath that doc, I'll put in the social media posts that I would create and then share it out. And on LinkedIn now, you can schedule your content to go native on there. So, even better.
Yes, I love it. I've absolutely really loved the LinkedIn articles and how they have it set up and how, yeah, it creates a newsletter and it notifies all the people who subscribe to it right away. I don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
And in some cases they even get an email as well in case they aren't on LinkedIn checking it. I loved
Yeah.
it. Absolutely love it. And I feel like it's hopefully a feature that's not going to go anywhere. You know how they say don't depend on social platforms because they change so often. Hopefully there's enough people utilizing this feature that it doesn't leave, because I've utilized it myself.
Yeah,
All right.
I think we're good to go on that front because it's really showing a lot of success for so many people.
Yes, yes. All right. One of the things I also talked about was focusing on the quality of the content rather than a lot of content. And the direction I went with that was, I gave an example of a brand could create one blog post a month, which that's to me, depending on where you are in business and how your workload is, that may be a pretty comfortable balance, just one main piece of
Mhm.
content a month. That could be a blog post, it could be a video, it could be a podcast, whatever their main platform is. Just focus on one, but then taking that, rather than trying to fill in the gaps the rest of the week with other content, taking that one main piece of content and breaking it up, repurposing it into social media post, taking, if it's a video, transcribing it into a blog post. If it's a video, taking the audio out, making it a podcast. So uh, that's where I went with quality over quantity. Is there a philosophy you have along with that type of quality versus quantity like mentality?
Yeah, I think that works really well. That's one of the packages I have is if you have a really tiny budget, just create one core piece of content a month and then repurpose it for everything else. I did a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago where I broke this down, where I actually broke it down from, okay, you have zero time. All
Mhm.
you have time to commit to is one interview once a quarter. How can you make that work so you are showing up for your audience every day? And you can do it. And if you have time to do one core piece of content a month, you're good to go. You can create that. It's not going to automatically boost you in Google with one. Over time it will. It will take some time cuz
Yes.
Google likes your website to show expertise and have enough content on there to show a history of expertise,
Yes.
but it
Yes.
will help you show up.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm learning is all the platforms, but especially anything related to Google, either YouTube or just your website and your rankings, is consistency, is putting out
Mhm.
consistent, fresh content. Even if your consistency is once a month, just establish that pattern and stick with it. And then, yeah, if you have the ability to repurpose the content, then that's going to help even better with your rankings and reaching the right people.
Yeah, and you can do that and create SEO content at the same time. You can take that one blog post that you can write a month and then take each section of that blog post and write guest blog posts for other publications and
Yeah.
have them backlink to that main page, or you can post them on your own blog. You can turn that into a podcast, an audio experience, or you can turn that blog post into a video and have a show notes page on your website. So there's lots of ways that you can still get that SEO juice when you're repurposing just one piece of content.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ways of repurposing content that I feel a lot of brands don't they hesitate from, because the idea of taking your content and having it live on somebody else's site, it's like, oh, you're giving them the traffic, you're giving them the exposure instead of your own. And so how do I know we're getting off topic, but in terms of repurposing content and gaining that exposure, is there any words of encouragement for people that are hesitant to share their content on other people's websites or their publications?
Well, that is a typical hub and spoke model of gaining SEO is having your hub on your website and your spokes on other websites so you can get more backlinks.
Yeah.
As Google does more updates, backlinks are mattering less and less, but that doesn't mean that don't get a big benefit from guest posting on other publications. My first three clients ever came from guest posts. Them, like those clients saw my byline, liked what I had to say, reached out to me, and earned around like 100K from guest blogs.
Nice. See, those are some good results. So that should be
Yeah.
encouragement enough for people to, not shy away from allowing your content to live somewhere else. There is more benefits than anything when it
And
comes
you're
to that.
borrowing other people's audiences too.
Yes.
That it's especially beneficial when you're first starting out or you're a really small business and you don't have an established audience yet. When you can
Yes.
get in front of that mirror audience that someone else already has established through these guest blogs, webinars, whatever they might be, that gets you in front of potential customers. There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So we have touched on just briefly a few different ways of repurposing content. Do you have like a repurposing checklist, or like all the ways that you can repurpose content? Or would you say like you have some top 5 ways you like to repurpose content for your clients?
Usually, what I do is I have a repurposing session where I'll take that thing that they created, whether it be a research report or an ebook or a guide, and I'll go through and explain everything that they could create with that. So, for example, if I'm looking at a report, I can break down what videos should be created. Should you do
Mm,
a panel video on this section of it? What social media posts should you be creating? Would this be beneficial in an infographic that you can share out? And infographics, by the way, are a great way to get backlinks to your website
yes.
because they're super shareable. Same with
Yeah.
research reports. If you're doing a video, definitely grab the audio from that video and create a audio experience or a podcast version of that video. You can take the transcripts from your videos and use that as an outline for a blog post. You can just put the transcripts on the show notes page, and that'll give you some SEO juice for those videos. And I don't know, I like reading more than watching videos. So that's often how I consume video content is reading captions or transcripts.
Nice. Okay. I usually hear the opposite, so that's good to know.
Yeah, there's 3 main types of learners, and I'm the kind who gets it from reading, gets my
Wow.
education from that.
Yay. That is good. Well, then I have some good books I can recommend to you one day.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And then in terms of, okay, so you made your examples here that you gave, you're talking about taking a research paper or ebooks. It sounds
Mhm.
like, clearly we're going from a larger project, something that took a lot of time to create and invest in, and then you're breaking it down into smaller pieces. What about the other way around? Let's say, um, somebody spent a year, you know, developing small pieces of content, maybe every, two pieces a month, but they're all around the same similar topic, just expanding on that topic. Would you suggest going the other way and taking all those smaller pieces and repurposing it into an ebook and going the opposite direction?
For sure, you can do that. I repurpose in all the ways.
Yes.
So, you can take those blog posts and turn it into an ebook or a guide. Um, Andy Crestodina, the founder of Orbit Media, he took his blog post and created an entire book. It's like a very thorough content strategy book
Okay.
that he sells on Amazon and his website. So you can create full books, not just ebooks. You can also take videos and podcast episodes and blog posts, mix them together based off of the themes, and create courses from it. So there's
Perfect.
a
And that's
ton of ways
now.
you can do it.
Yeah, so
Hmm?
doing that can take, the free content you've created and turn it into something where you can actually start generating some revenue from like a course. Let's say you charge, I don't know, $37 for the course. That's $37 that you can get based off of the work you've already done. You're not adding anything to your work labor other than packaging the course together.
Right, exactly. You're curating content that already exists, and then you can add an add on feature. Like, let's say the content that you're curating for this course is around content strategy. You can have an add on for the course where you do a monthly coaching call on content strategy or
Yes.
something like that. So you can, add, it could be more expensive than $37.
Yes. All right. Now, suppose you're in the position where you have a big project coming up and guaranteed for the next 6 months, you're not going to have time to create content. How do you recommend that clients look back at all their previous content and pull out what they can reuse and repurpose that they already have existing?
Well, first look at your analytics. What's doing best? What are people super into that you're creating? So, for example, I'm always amazed by this, but when I look on my analytics, my quarterly marketing planning does best. That's how most people are coming to my website, is that. So, I would curate content around that and I would repurpose the pieces that are doing really well
Yeah.
and then link back to that piece that is bringing in all of that traffic anyway. So I would start with your analytics. What are they telling you people want to hear more of? And then I would batch like crazy. If you
Yes.
have a project that's going to be taking you 6 months, then batch and schedule everything ahead of time so you're still showing up for your audience even though you are in the weeds with work.
Yes, yes. I am a huge fan of batching, and I always try to encourage my clients to just gravitate towards that. Even if you just batch them a month at a time, it still saves
Mhm.
so much in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a fan of quarterly. I do all of my planning at one time so there's cohesion in it, but quarterly is still agile enough that you can move where you need to move if the world
Yes,
changes a little.
yes, totally agree. Okay, all right. The last thing I wanted to touch on is when we've decided, yes, we're going to repurpose this piece of content, and we've made a list of all the different places and the methods and the structures that we're going to repurpose it to. Do you recommend that they really focus on each platform individually and optimize the content for those platforms, or is it easier to just copy and paste it and move forward as the original content was? Does that make sense?
Mm. It does, and certainly it's easier to do it that way, but it's not as effective.
Yes.
Um, I would recommend focusing on the platforms that you want to gain traction in and repurposing specifically for those channels. You'll get a lot more benefit that way. And it's not going to take you as much time as you think because you've already done the work. You've already done the research and you already have the core content created. You just have to reuse it, repurpose it in a different way. And you can always outsource that creation if you want an infographic from this amazing video that you did with somebody and everyone just loved it and there was like a concept that you talked about, have someone else do it. Get a VA or a graphic designer. If
Yeah.
you are bringing in help, just do it fractionally so you can afford it and it will scale up or down with you.
Yes. Perfect. Awesome. Well, do you have anything else you want to add in terms of repurposing content that could be beneficial?
I would just refer back to okay, I am going to refer back to episode 27 of the Tiny Marketing Show,
Okay.
where I explain how to create 64 pieces of content from 1 hour of work.
Nice.
So basically, what I do is I break down a 1 hour influencer interview and how you can create one new piece of content for every weekday of the quarter. So,
Awesome. I will listen to that myself as well, because when I think of content repurposing, at least the way I've been using it for my brand, I usually come up with like five or six. So to come up with 64, I have to definitely hear how that we can do that and how much exposure that will gain.
yeah, I mean, if you don't, going back to your example of you're going to be busy for 6 months in
Yeah.
the weeds, that's the way to do it. You can do 2 influencer interviews and repurpose it, and you're covered for those 6 months.
Yes. Oh, it sounds so easy. It does. It sounds so easy. So definitely have to listen to this and learn how I can recommend my clients do this as well.
Yeah, it's certainly easy once you have the systems in place and you know how to like, the process involved with the creation of it, it's
Yeah.
super easy and doable.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, remind everybody again. I know you mentioned it earlier, but remind everybody where they can find you, especially your podcast, so they can hear your wisdom as well.
Yes, so the podcast is a Tiny Marketing Show, it's all the places, and you can find me online under Sarah Noel Block, my full name. That's my social media handles and my website.
Okay, perfect. Sarah, I really appreciate you taking your time to come on the show and share your wisdom and inspiration with everybody.
I am happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, everybody, I am excited to wrap up this series. Next month, we will start another mini series. I'll really reveal that topic soon on social media, but we appreciate you sticking around. If you haven't subscribed to the Marketing 101 for Small Business Owners podcast yet, please do. We appreciate the support. And if you please, I encourage you to check out Sarah's podcast as well. Make sure you subscribe and listen and share the content you get there. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week.